Welcome, everybody, to another episode of OA News Overtime. I'm Jordan Hill, as always, with Justin Lee.
Jordan, we're back.
Back in person.
In person, in the studio.
Well, 2021 was the last.
Yeah, it's been a whole year.
Whole year since you run that. I haven't seen you in a year, Justin.
Haven't showered in a year.
Yeah, well, that's actually still true. But a lot to tackle, a lot to get to, a lot of stuff going on. We can talk. We'll talk a little bit later about sort of the college football scene with Auburn and the national championship, and we got gymnastics as well. But I think we would be remiss.
Auburn's riding high. The trees are rolled as we speak.
The calendar is turned.
They may have cleaned up the trees by now.
Probably.
But we're sitting here on Wednesday, a few hours after Auburn's win over Alabama late at night, Tuesday night.
Yes. Alabama and Auburn battled it out in Tuscaloosa, and Auburn, number 4.
These late games are doing a number on me.
You think they did a number on you? Oh, my God. I'm going on like no sleep today. Number 4, Auburn, 81. Number 24, Alabama, 77. Really exciting game. A really competitive first half. Second half, Auburn got out to a 14-point lead. Alabama erased it in the manner of about 3.5 minutes, setting up for a very tight final few minutes. And Auburn wound up coming up, on top. Made some plays, did a really good job of getting some big defensive rebounds. Alabama missed, I think, 8 shots in a row from the field. Alan Flanagan goes down and hits 4 key free throws when, if I remember correctly, coming into last night, he had shot like 4 or 5 free throws all year because he hasn't played in that many games.
Wow, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, just ice him. You can read that in the follow that'll be in the Thursday paper. But yeah, a very impressive performance on the road. This is a team that is continuing to chug along. I think that was 12 wins in a row now.
Right.
Again, to win like that against an Alabama team that beat Houston, beat Gonzaga already this year, that's a good team. That's going to more than likely be, in the top echelon of the SEC. Just what was your feeling watching the game last night, and even bigger picture, what getting a win like that says about this Auburn team?
You know what? I don't know what to make of. I don't know what to make of that 14-0 run. I'm not quite sure what to make of it. I mean, obviously Alabama's capable of that at home in the right environment when you're shooting 29 free throws and you have the crowd on your side and all that. You don't want to see a lead evaporate like that, like it did for Auburn. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm starting to feel like that run could have happened. I think, in most SEC home gyms for the SEC home team. But what was extraordinary, what was out of the ordinary, to me was how Alan Flanagan stepped up and hit those free throws, how Auburn kept poised at the end of the game. And look, man, Alabama choked that game hard, and that's and if you're an Auburn fan, you don't care. Celebrate.
You take what you can get because
take it, talk trash, and enjoy it.
And that's the nature of the sport. You can say that Alabama was in prime position, but Auburn was right there to where it's like you like to say with running the football and in football, something good might happen if you're right there. Well, Auburn was in position and Alabama couldn't finish.
Yeah, something might mess around and happen. But I mean, Alabama totally choked. I mean, you look at it, they had a wide open corner 3. He airballs a layup.
I may see that play in my head for the next week. I'm just looking, and I think it was Quinterly that was wide open. Katie Johnson had moved up to pick up a guy that was open at the top of the arc. Yeah. And I was like, oh, here it comes.
And then Nate Oates on the next trip fouled with like a 4-second differential on the game clock. It made no sense. Yeah. Nothing they did made any sense at the end. I think Oates, they'll all evaluate all of it and be like, this was garbage.
we messed up.
but yeah, like you said, I just don't know. I don't know what to make of that. But other than that, bad stretches happen. Bad stretches are still to come for this team. I mean, but you look at the Final Four team, they had bad weeks. They had not just bad games, bad weeks, and this is a team that is having some bad minutes.
Yes. Not even bad halves. Really,
Not
at
even
this
bad halves,
point,
really.
you had bad halves at the very beginning of the year.
Yeah.
But I think that's very common with, especially a team with as much turnover
Yeah.
coming into the year as this one had.
Yeah. So I don't know what to make of it. It's hard to. It kind of scratches your head when you see a 14-0 run like that and a lead evaporate, and it's like, well, it's probably the best team in the country.
Yeah.
But hey, man, sometimes it's college basketball. Sometimes college basketball teams just aren't that refined, and Auburn might be still could be one of the best, even with how rough it is around the edges. I mean, that's I don't know. That's the only thing that I kind of don't know what to make of it. Other than that, a really strong win, and not as strong as if they had held on to that 10-point lead and just cruised. But you take that win anytime you can get it. Really good teams, including a couple years ago, an undefeated team, walked into Coleman Coliseum and lost. And that year, it felt inevitable to everyone who covered the team and every Auburn fan. And if you're listening to this, you know it's true. Like, Auburn was undefeated, and it was like Auburn fans were kind of hoping they would lose before Alabama, so that Alabama didn't have the glory of snapping the streak in Coleman. But they did. And but this was a game where Auburn came in so confidently, it looked like. I mean, you were there.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Like, to me, what I enjoyed watching before the game was Jabari Smith coming out of the locker room, getting ready to go on the court. Alabama students just heckling him mercilessly, I should say, Leslie, running by him, not even breaking stride, going on the court, getting a ball, and just sinking a shot. Like, that was to me of what you're saying. I don't think there was any kind of concern of like, oh, we're in Coleman.
Right.
I don't know how this is going to go.
But that's how a rivalry should be, man. And I mean, Bruce, there was no wiping that grin off his face.
No.
The Auburn players did all the Karate Kid stuff. And I mean, they should. You won. Go in there and do that.
That's the rivalry.
Yeah, that's what they're going to do coming here. So
That's what I was going to say.
The football team already did it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes this stuff fun.
Yeah.
And you get mad, and like that's what rivalries are for, man.
Yeah.
Why would you rather they just shake hands and walk off the court? What are you, nuts?
Yeah.
I want to add a little something to it. A couple things I want to talk about, not only about last night's game, but just sort of bigger picture, starting with last night's game. And this is not just last night's game. We keep seeing it over and over, but just stretches where different guys are leading sort of the charge.
Sure.
Jabari had a great game just all over, and you expect that because at this point I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that everyone is starting to expect him to be the top pick.
Right.
And he's playing like it. He's playing really well. But Wendell Green Jr. is a madman with some of the shots he takes. And as entertaining as it is for me to watch him shoot those deep threes, to watch him get under the basket and lay the ball up, like he just has all the angles and knows exactly how to work his way through. There was, I think it was with Devin Cambridge, he had a play where he cut through the defense. He sliced through two defenders and laid it up, and Devin slammed it. And I mean, it was just a picture-perfect play by Wendell. KD Johnson continues to play like a man with hair on fire.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was Justin Ferguson who pointed out that, early on it's like KD's playing at a different speed than everybody.
Sure.
Like, it just looks like everyone else is going in slow motion and KD's all over the place.
Yeah.
And then you talk about Allen, a guy that still has not played a whole lot.
Right.
Come down there. And
this is why he's Allen Flanagan.
Yeah.
Like, this is why we talk about this stuff.
And that's why him being on this team, I think, is so important, especially as this year goes along.
Right.
You've got a guy that's been in these situations. And, like, I went back today when I was sort of writing my follow and pulled it up and was watching the game. And the commentators are like, this is a big situation. And then Allen steps up there and just hits the first one. And one of the commentators, I think it was Tim Ravitch, was like, he does not look concerned. You know what I mean? Like, he was just like, well, he made that first one and didn't even, break. He was on.
Yeah.
But just very impressed with how this team has handled this. I thought that this kind of stretch, and Bruce Pearl talked about this a few weeks. I mean, I think it might have been last week at this point, that, this wasn't necessarily a killer stretch, but this was a pretty challenging stretch of having to go on the road to South Carolina. That's a physical team. playing Florida, playing at Alabama. And, there were rough moments in some of those games. Florida came back at one point and then Auburn held them off. But they won all those games in that stretch. And now you're looking at an Ole Miss team that's kind of been up and down. They just lost to Texas A&M. You do have to go on the road, so that makes it difficult. Then you play a Georgia team that is just Tom Crean is a dead man walking.
Yeah,
that's
not looking good.
That's just not. And Katie Johnson, I think, is going to be very excited to be able to play.
God,
that's going to be fun.
He might get ejected.
I can't wait to watch Twitter when that game goes final.
Well, before that Ole Miss game, I've got it circled just because Auburn could win and could be number one in the country.
Yes,
that's a big deal.
And we can talk a little bit about that right now. Baylor lost.
Fire one up, Chris Porter.
Yeah, Texas Tech beat Baylor.
Yep.
And at this point, which I didn't realize this stat, and I saw it last night, that Auburn is the only team in the country that has not lost in regulation this year.
Yeah.
That loss was in the double overtime to UConn.
Yep.
I don't see an argument at this point against them being number one coming up on Monday. And we'll see, how the rest of the week goes. And if you have a poor showing on the road against Ole Miss, that can change that.
Yeah. Unless you're just still pretty convinced Baylor's number one.
Yeah. And again, I hate to break this to you, but being number one in college basketball means nothing.
It doesn't mean anything.
It means literally zero. But to me, it's a nice signal of what people think of this team, what people make of this team, and what this team has accomplished. It's still early in the year.
It'd be another feather in the cap for Bruce Pearl.
Exactly. And a very still inexperienced Auburn team. But I think they're deserving at this point, and it's just a matter of can they continue that play, and can they stay healthy? Can they, continue to show strides before the really important games down the stretch leading into March when all the eyes are, people – again, there's a lot of basketball to be played, and you've got to beat the teams like Kentucky and some of the other contenders, Tennessee, some of the other squads that people expect to be near the top of the conference.
Right.
But you're starting to see, the start of projections saying Auburn, number one seed right now.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of being able to continue that through the rest of the regular season, staying healthy, continuing to get different guys involved, and just finding a way to win more and more.
I think now's the time where you can say that, earlier in the season it was like, expectations for the SEC. It's like, oh, yeah, maybe, top three finish in league play and then make a run at the tournament. Now, it's starting to look like you're challenging for that SEC championship in the regular season. You're undefeated in the conference so far. I don't know who the contender is. You got that win over LSU already. LSU could still catch you if you slip up 2 or 3 times. But other than that, I look at Kentucky. I'll always look at Kentucky.
Yeah, but look at to your point, that you do play them, but you play them here.
Right.
So that's certainly, if you were in Rupp, that would be a much different challenge.
Got to come to Auburn Arena. I'll go back to one of the ESPN guys. It might have been, what's his name? Seth
Greenberg?
I don't know.
Was it the guy that was here for...
some guy. Somebody.
It wasn't the guy that was here for...
no, not him.
No, tip-off at Tumors?
No, not him.
Okay. Anyway.
No, it's someone else. But they said... they think, the big thing about Auburn, they have the highest upside in the SEC. And I was watching that, and I said, no, they don't. Kentucky has the highest upside in the SEC. Kentucky always has the highest upside in the SEC. Kentucky has 12 McDonald's All-Americans. Kentucky's Kentucky. It's a matter of if they can play together, and it's gotten to a point where kind of more seasons than not, they're not living up to their potential, but the potential is still there.
Yes.
And I'm biased. I'm stuck in my ways. That's how I'm going to look at it forever. I'm going to be like, you got to watch Kentucky, and I don't really even care how down they are, and I think that's the case this year. For me, I'd if you told me, I'd say either Auburn or Kentucky's going to win the conference. It's just a matter of can Auburn keep their lead, and does the talent at a place. I think Kentucky's the only place with the talent to change its team. I don't think Alabama's going to change. I don't think LSU's going to change from what it is. LSU's still really good. But Yeah, that's just where I see it. So all of a sudden now, I mean, you're talking about really contending for a regular season championship and then going to the SEC tournament and trying to win there. I see it a little too much. Like everyone's like, oh, this is a Final Four team. Everyone talks about the Final Four. I'm sorry, man. Like even Duke doesn't go to the Final Four.
It's
like,
a total crapshoot.
It's a crapshoot. It's complete. It's the worst way to determine a champion.
Yeah.
We just do it because it's fun.
It's entertaining.
Yeah. So like I don't know if I was a fan, I mean you're welcome to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But if I was a fan, I wouldn't be using that as a measure of success.
Yes.
Maybe can say, hey, this is a Final Four contender.
Yeah.
It's possible with this team.
Yeah.
But it's such a crapshoot, man. I mean that the Auburn's Final Four team could have lost to New Mexico.
That's the thing that I was
Probably
about to.
shoulda.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up because it was New Mexico State, and it was it like some rebounds? I mean, like it was very much on the line of losing. That was the first round, wasn't it?
First round.
So like that's the thing to me when to your point when people are like, you know. I don't think I've necessarily seen people say Final Four or bust, but that's kind of along the lines of what the mentality is.
Just bringing up the word Final Four.
Yeah.
I'm like, just don't do it.
Yeah. I get that because like you're saying, and think about how differently that team would have been considered had they not beat New Mexico State. It's a total crapshoot in March. You just hope that you are in a position to make the plays, and you just kind of got to get lucky sometimes. You know, when you look at think about Georgia Masons and Butlers of the world. You know, Loyola.
Yep.
Those are good teams, but like if they beat
Zion didn't even go to the Final Four.
Yeah, like if one of those teams beats Auburn, like
being good has no bearing on making the Final Four.
It really doesn't.
It has some bearing. Not all of the bearing.
It's all about just making the plays at the right, being in the right place at the right time a lot of the time. But I mean, this is a team that I'm really excited just from what I've gotten to watch.
Sure.
Not trying to look ahead, but like just what that atmosphere will be like with that team. We don't know how far they would go once we get to March, but it would be fun to watch. Even before that, with the SEC tournament, I mean, I think that kind of environment will be pretty fun to see this team in.
Auburn basketball winning a championship, sending the number 1 pick to the NBA draft.
Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought?
Not me.
Nope. Who'd have thought?
Well, let's shift gears to football, talk a little bit about football.
Sure.
And I'm going to throw this to you, but I'll set this up. So the championship game was on Monday.
Sure.
Georgia beats Alabama 34-18. That's Georgia's first national title in 41 years. You've written a good bit about this, even going back to the regular season and talking about sort of Auburn being, stuck between a rock and a hard place, essentially, between their two biggest rivals. What's sort of your take from the Auburn perspective on, where things stand, I guess, in the college football landscape with Georgia winning the national title, breaking that streak, Alabama still being Alabama, and Auburn trying to kind of find its place between those two?
That was almost like the worst case scenario in both times, because if Georgia had beaten Alabama in the SEC championship game, at least Alabama wouldn't have gone to the playoff.
Yeah,
you could have at least eliminated one of them. But of course, you're the Auburn fan cheering for Georgia and Alabama wins. And then you come to the playoff, and I know a lot of, if not most, Auburn fans. I mean, obviously, besides the Auburn fans who live in Georgia and have to deal with Georgia fans, I mean, a lot of them who live here, it was like, well, if another Saban-era championship doesn't really change anything.
No.
Doesn't change anything. He's already the best dynasty in the history of college football. He's already at 100%. There's nothing. He's already at 6 stars. Like, there's nothing. It wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
It would suck to watch if you're an Auburn fan.
I'm not going to enjoy it.
Yeah, you're an Auburn fan. But the Georgia, that changes the landscape more because, like you said, it's the first national championship since 1980. That gives them another feather in their cap. That gives them something that they can pitch on the recruiting trail that they didn't have already.
No.
I mean, obviously, championship's a championship, but Alabama, it's like, you're already Alabama. What are you going to do?
To that point, if you're on the recruiting trail, if you're a recruit, you're like, how many national titles do y'all have? Like, you know what I mean?
It doesn't matter.
Like, what's the number? You could say anything at this point with Alabama.
It doesn't matter. And
but 0 at Georgia compared to 1 is significant.
A big gap.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I know Auburn fans don't want to hear that, but, I mean, that's just how it is right now.
Yeah.
But it was kind of incredible to, of course, watch both things play out as bad as possibly could for Auburn. And I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe that's if you're an Auburn fan, that's what you get for cheering for either one of them. I mean, just don't watch the games, to be honest.
Spend time with the family.
Yeah,
Watch a movie.
But Tuesday I was just impressed with I mean. There you go. If Monday's the end of the world, if Monday's the worst thing that could ever happen, Monday's Georgia and Alabama playing in the football national championship game, and it's not even the first time that freaking happened.
Yeah.
It's happened twice in the last 5 years. The ultimate nightmare.
Yeah.
For any sports fan. And it's happened twice now. But a day later they're out there rolling tumors. And I mean, I think there's something to be said about that. And it's just there's a mentality there that's impressive to me. And it's just I don't know. I think you just gotta it's a grin and bear through it. I say bear. They survived Paul Bear Bryant.
Yep.
And that was brutal. And now Nick Saban, it's brutal again.
It's brutal out there.
It's brutal out there. And now there's two of them because Kirby's got Georgia to the ultimate stage now. But I mean, you just got to keep pushing through and just keep being Auburn. And that's it's kind of crazy, but I mean, like we say, who would have thought? All of a sudden, you've got a basketball team that could win a championship and send the number 1 pick to the NBA draft. That's insane. That doesn't happen at Auburn.
No.
Olympic all-around gold medal gymnast. Mm-hmm. She doesn't come to Auburn, and yet here we are. Even during the darkest days. So. There's just a perseverance to it that's interesting to me, and I mean, if you're Auburn, I think everyone, you just have to stick through it and stick with it, and we're just gonna see more and more of that, I think.
No, I think you hit the nail right on the head.
Because I do think that Georgia winning was the worst thing that could have happened.
No, I mean, believe me,
That's tough.
I'm a Georgia alum, and obviously following a lot of Auburn people, a lot of Auburn fans. People loved pointing out. Mm-hmm. It had been 41 years. Yeah. And, Georgia could not get over the hump.
And Kirby could not beat Nick Saban.
No.
Until last night. Or until 2 nights ago.
You should think Jimbo. Jimbo beat him, and then now that Pandora's box is... Jimbo should get a share of that.
Gets all the credit.
I voted Jimbo. I voted Texas A&M number 1 because Jimbo is the one who... It's like loosening a jar.
Sure.
And then
breaking the seal.
Yeah, exactly.
Zach Calzada.
Yeah.
Auburn Tiger.
Can I ask a question that I don't know if anyone's answered? Why did they make him
I don't know.
Look like a zombie?
Teen Wolf. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe we should ask him.
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Dude, maybe he's into zombie movies. That USC kid just loves Star Wars. You know what I'm talking about?
Nope, no idea.
The quarterback, Dart Jackson.
Jackson Dart.
With an X.
Yes.
He'd fit in here.
I mean, a quarterback named Dart is pretty badass.
Yeah, but the Jackson with the J. He probably
Yes.
has a sister named Talon with like 3 Y's. But yeah, he does one eye black, and it's just because he likes Anakin Skywalker from Star Wars.
Okay.
It's just like that's his Darth Vader cosplay.
As hard as this is going to believe, this is a good segue because
can you believe it? Because we watched Star Wars over the weekend. I'm just kidding.
Whoops. No, the portal is sort of the focus right now. Auburn's still able to add high school guys at this point, but that's sort of the focus right now.
Yeah.
There's been a few guys that they missed out on. I'm trying to remember the receiver from James Madison. He committed to South Carolina. Yep. He was a pretty good player. I watched a little bit and wrote about him last week. Another guy they were interested in. He's going to go play with
Spencer Rattler.
Yes. Casey Thompson, that was at Texas, and he was the guy that seemed like Auburn was at least in the mix for, but I don't think was considered a favorite. He's going to Nebraska to play for Scott Frost.
Yep.
So there's going to be a lot of focus the next few days and weeks. I know that there's an offensive lineman. I think it's an offensive guard from Louisiana Lafayette, Osiris Torrance. Mm-hmm. He's the guy they're trying to get. They got a big boost with Nick Brahms and Austin Troxell announcing that they're coming back. Yeah. I think you can't really overstate how important that was because this line is just had the potential to be totally decimated as far as starters. But
they couldn't run the ball up the middle in the bowl game.
No.
And it was that bad.
Nope.
And remember, Nick didn't play.
Yeah.
So having him back is huge. I mean, because that was your starting point for next year, and that was a bad starting point.
Yes, and Osiris Torrance, say they land him. I don't know if he said when he's going to announce where he's going, but that would be a guy that you could plug in for one of the offensive guards. I didn't realize this, and nothing's been announced yet, but apparently Brandon Council may have another year of eligibility if he's able to get a medical from this year. So that would be huge if you get another guy.
Sure.
But yeah, guys they can still go after in the portal. There's a lot of talk about Caleb Williams. I'm not convinced. I think he's going to USC, as there was talk about that.
I don't think he's coming here.
Yeah.
He doesn't have an offensive line. He doesn't have any wide receivers.
Yeah, and as people were getting excited about it, which, people who know more on the recruiting side, like Rivals Christian Clemente, has said that Auburn has done a pretty good job as far as pursuing him.
Oh, I'm sure.
But, Casey was at the Rams game Caleb was at the Rams game on Sunday in L.A., and I'm like, yeah, he's going to USC.
Yeah,
like,
no.
I think
Well, most people have written it off now that Jackson Dart's in the portal.
Yeah.
So.
The writing's on the wall.
But there are Jackson Dart, sure.
Yeah,
Isn't he from like Georgia or something?
I don't know. With a name like Jackson with an X.
Think so.
Yeah, we might have gone to high school together. Truthfully. But
if I'm Auburn, I'm going after him. I mean, I certainly don't think Calzada coming closed the door on adding any more quarterbacks.
I agree.
But I think they have to be really good.
Mm-hmm. They got to be starter quality.
They're not going to bring anybody on the level of Calzada and TJ. I think they're fine with those two competing with each other. But if you can bring in a star.
Yeah. And the thing to watch now that the season's over is there may be more quarterbacks that enter the portal. And that could change the calculation. Yeah, I was going to say, I truly didn't know anything about him. But, yeah, I mean, there might be some more guys that enter the portal from other teams that all of a sudden Auburn might decide that's who they really want. So I don't think Calzada closed the door on that. And it's going to be important that they add some guys that can at least compete for some of these starting jobs and have a chance to add to this, add to the depth chart and have a chance to make this team, give them more quality, again, receiver, offensive line.
Yeah.
Maybe even if they want to add linebacker, even though they got Owen and Cam Riley and Wesley Steiner. So, yeah, I mean, I think it'll just be something to watch as far as how they're able to go through the portal coming weeks and coming months.
If I was an Auburn fan, I'd give anything for some linemen and some receivers right now.
Yes.
I mean, 'cause you just don't have them.
Yes, I agree.
And I mean, I don't know how you expect to recruit Caleb Williams until you have him.
No.
Not coming here.
I mean, at this point with quarterbacks, you have to.
I mean, that was a big difference maker for Cam, and everyone can say their little jokes about Cam, but it was Auburn and Mississippi State, and Mississippi State was garbage, and Auburn had like Lee Zimba, Ryan Pugh, Baron Isom. It had like 5 fifth-year senior linemen coming back for 2010. Mm-hmm. So Cam was like, that's where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a guy of that caliber, you need to go somewhere that.
Trying to go to the NFL, man.
Yes.
Like everyone's making a lot out of this NIL stuff. That's a one-time. That's not going to get.
No.
You're trying to make a career in the NFL.
Yes, and if you're not being able to stay upright, it's going to be a whole lot harder for you to do that.
Yeah. No.
But all right, what else do we want to hit on? Gymnastics.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go for it, Justin. Fill us in.
Jim, SEC opener. Is this week at Arkansas this Friday night. It'll be on TV, SEC Network. It's a good time. Dang, we've been going a while. We'll be quick. We don't have to be quick, but the opener with North Carolina at North Carolina was a really strong performance by them. It was the eighth best score in the country over the opening weekend, and that's really good considering they're on the road. I mean, I don't know how many teams ahead of them were at home. I bet I would venture to guess 3 or 4 of those teams ahead of them were at home on their own equipment. And when you're on the road in someone else's gym, everything's a little bit different. The way it's springy, the way the bars feel, there's a real advantage to being at home. And just the way that they closed the meet was really strong. If you're not a gymnastics fan, they went to the fourth quarter tied. There's 4 rotations. Through 3 of them, Auburn and North Carolina were tied. North Carolina was closing on floor, and Auburn was closing on vault, which you don't typically do, but that's not really important because it was 3-team meet. They closed on vault, and Auburn stepped up to the challenge and put together a really huge vault score. And it turned out to be the 3rd best vault score in the country, and I know that both the teams ahead of Auburn, I think it was Oklahoma and LSU, whoever it was, Michigan and LSU, they were both at home. So it was the country's best road vault score to start the season, which is really good. I mean, you want to be among the best, and it's been funny because I mean, you would almost think that with SUNY coming in and with everything going on, you might try to temper expectations, but I mean, when we talked to Auburn, the athletes immediately are like, no, we're trying to go to the Final Four. We're trying to go to the national championship meet, and we're trying to go to day 2 of the national championship meet. Personally, I think just making the national championship meet would be huge for Auburn. That's the top 8. That'd be massive. You want that. You want to be able to get out on the recruiting trail and tell kids like, hey, if you come to us, you got a chance to go to the big meet. But I mean, and they entered the season ranked 14th in the coaches poll, and it's kind of like what? And then lo and behold, though, after 1 week of competition, there Auburn is with the 8th best score in the country. So that'll do it, and that's how you get to the postseason. The seeding is based, that's why gymnastics is weird. Like head-to-head wins don't actually matter.
Yeah.
It's just based on your score. But yeah, I think. Well, it's going to be every week now. Everyone's going to be watching SUNY. We'll see if she can get. I thought it was interesting. She scored a 9.775, which because she kicked the low bar during her routine, which is a 2/10 deduction. So if her foot was a centimeter over, she didn't kick the low bar, she would have had a 9.75 in her first bar routine. And just what that tells you is she was already that close to a 10. She's going to be competing for 10s pretty much every week. I mean, it could happen. So we just got to follow it and watch. There's a few 10-capable people. Drew on vault, Auburn's ace on vault, that helped key that big vault comeback. She's capable of getting a 10 on vault. And then Darion Goborn is capable of getting a 10 on floor. She's gotten it from one judge but not the other before. So that's 3 people who are capable of getting 10s, and it's only happened like 8 times in Auburn's history or something like that. Less than 20 times in Auburn's history, I know that. I don't know, man. I mean, that's just, and now you go to Arkansas and you really want good road scores. The home scores kind of take care of themselves. But yeah, and then the first home meet is a week after Friday, so people will get the chance to see the team in person here in Auburn. But Arkansas will be another good one. I mean, every team in the SEC is good. There's only 8 SEC teams. Not everybody in the conference sponsors. Almost half of them don't. But like in those preseason rankings, the top 16, 8 of them were the 8 SEC teams. It's ridiculous how far ahead the SEC is than the rest of the country, and it's only going to get better when Oklahoma comes, because Oklahoma's another one of the top 3 programs. But yeah, man, they're starting conference play, so that's always big, and they're actually competing in Bud Walton for the first time. Yeah, so they always Jim competed up there. And I guess their old basketball arena, but now they're moving into Bud Walton. Okay. Yeah. All right. It should be a really big crowd. Big thing. I don't know if Auburn, if SUNY, if that kind of stuff has anything to do with it. Maybe probably not. They probably had it scheduled in advance. But either way, it should be a big crowd, and people are gonna be there to see it. So I don't know, man. Just a big, really solid opening meet. And I think it was Auburn Elvis on Twitter asked okay, how do you compare this to football? And I said, it was like beating Washington or Oregon in a neutral site opener. Yeah. Which is not the greatest thing that's ever happened, but it's more reason to be optimistic than just a ho-hum opener. It's a good, strong opener. So there you go. Now you're just following. So if you don't know anything about gymnastics, I mean that might be one of the things. It's just like keep looking out to see if either of those guys get a 10. I mean that's one of the easiest ways to follow and see. Suni could have it any week now, so we'll see how it goes. But I mean, now it's a matter of just consistency. You don't want that first meet to be an anomaly. You want to be like, all right, let's do it again. So we'll see. Friday night, 7:30, I think.
It'll be exciting.
First flip.
It'll be exciting to see and to follow, and obviously Justin will be all over that. What stuff are you working on, Justin? The main thing that I've got coming out the next couple days, doing a feature on Austin Davis, the new offensive coordinator for Auburn. Had a chance to talk to his former offensive coordinator at Southern Miss, Blake Anderson, who's now the head coach at Utah State. A couple of his teammates from Southern Miss, just to kind of get a feel for, what Austin was like as a quarterback, what they saw back then that makes them think, that he'll make a good offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Auburn. That's kind of the biggest thing for me, and then obviously basketball. They'll be playing Ole Miss on the road Saturday night. What you got going on? What you got on the periphery as we get ready for another week of Auburn sports?
We got gym. We got Auburn women's basketball off to they're 0-3 in conference. They had two pretty close games, competitive games, 3-point loss to Alabama, and then went to overtime with Missouri. Basically a tie, and then lost to nationally ranked LSU and Kim Mulkey. That'll happen. But Johnny Harris' team still looking for their first conference win. And other than that, gymnastics. And other than that, this game against Ole Miss, man. I mean, for this men's basketball team, I think every big game is just going to be the next one. But I mean, what a moment, man. You think about that Chris Porter poster and those days when Auburn was number one. That would be a big deal to get Auburn basketball to number one in the poll. I really do think that would be something worth celebrating. For the fans at least, even though the team's going to stay focused on what they need to be focused on. So, going to be a big one. And that the Ole Miss venue, I've never been there, but I think it's really similar to Auburn Arena, right? Like it's new, it's small.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Intimate.
Yes.
So
getting more bang for your proverbial buck.
Yeah, could be a tough place to play, but we'll see. That's gonna be big.
For sure, and we'll be all over that. And Justin will have the gym coverage and all kinds of good stuff on that side. We're going to wrap this episode up. Thanks again for everybody watching, for everybody listening.
We went long, Jordan.
Nah.
We just haven't talked in a long time.
We haven't sat down and chatted, man. Make sure and subscribe, share the video, share the podcast, tell all your friends. So we're going to get out of here on that. I'm Jordan Hill. That's Justin Lee. Until next time, take care.